Hello, my name is William Anderson. I'm a third year student studying at UCEN Manchester for a Bachelor of Science with honours in Sports Coaching and School Sports, accredited through Manchester Metropolitan University, and this is a video project for the course around the subjects of high performance coaching methods and strength and conditioning methods used by today's coaches in sports. Before we can design an effective strength and conditioning program for a footballer, we need to look at the demands of the sport on that player. So the position that our client plays is striker, and when we look at soccer as a whole, the energy systems in play are mainly anaerobic. So using for 50% of the time, the striker is using adenosine triphosphate and phosphocreatine system. As Bansgbo et al. 1994 state, no sport at all is dependent on a single energy system. Within football, there's a lot of jogging, tracking back, and to be successful, you need to have a good base of aerobic and a very good anaerobic fitness level. The matches are typically decided at the highest speeds, again, with the anaerobic system dominant, Clark et al. 2015. And Andrzejewski et al. 2013 studied strikers and found that they cover more distance at full sprint than any other position. Typically 90% of their sprints are less than 5 seconds in duration. Average distance is 15 metres, and every 90 seconds they're going into a sprint. So we need to consider these when we're designing our programme. Also, for a striker, there's 1,000 to 1,200 changes in locomotion during a match. Bansgbo again, 1994, and every 4.5 seconds there's a change of direction or a change of speed. So again, we need to take this in consideration when we design our program. Taking a look at the actual client, he's male, age 35, weighs just under 80 kilos. About 2 years ago, he had an anterior cruciate ligament injury. It was a partial tear, which he's fully recovered from now, but we're trying to prevent that from happening again, so we'll design that into the program as well. He's amateur. He just plays at a recreational level a couple of times a week. He's been doing so for the past 2 years. He's a striker in position, so we need to consider that in the design of the program, and he aims to improve his acceleration, reduce fatigue and repeated sprints. Again, that all falls into the demands of the sport and his position. Another important factor to consider when designing a strength and conditioning program is that of injury prevention. According to Gallucci 2014, a sprained ankle is the most common injury. It's accounting for 17% of recreational football injuries, usually down to improper change of direction, unstable landings when an athlete's jumped up and landed down when they plant the foot, causing supination at the ankle joints. To help to prevent this, we're going to do some strengthening exercises and stabilisation exercise within our plyometric sessions, as advised by Nadine et al. 2013. Also, hamstrings and quadricep tears are common, and usually due to hyperflexion of the muscle. To prevent this, according to Dimenna et al. 2013, we're going to incorporate an appropriate warm-up. We'll also have a muscle strengthening element within Olympic lifting, the power clean in particular, and we're going to incorporate some flexibility into the cool-down aspects of the program. Our client in particular has suffered from this in the past. It's recovered, but he's had an anterior cruciate ligament tear. According to Alentorn-Geli et al. 2009, that's usually caused by the tibia and fibia twisting in opposite direction to the femur. If we look at this little diagram here, that shows the kind of action that we're looking at. To overcome this, to prevent it, according to Sukamel 2015, we're going to be strengthening the leg muscles. Again, that will be through a combination of plyometrics and also Olympic lifting, looking at strengthening the quads and biceps femoris. Again, a thorough warm-up is thoroughly advised as well. Keeping the demands of the sport in mind and referring back to the needs analysis for football, a program has been designed to increase repeated sprintability through high-intensity interval training, to attempt to increase power production through the power clean technique, which is an Olympic lift. We'll be using plyometrics to increase the power velocity, and to improve quickness, agility and speed, we'll be using some acceleration drills and change of direction drills and incorporating some agility into those as well. Also, it's important, we're going to attempt to reduce the likelihood of future injuries through all of the above. As part of the programme, a general warm-up has been designed. More detail will go into the warm-ups depending on which aspect of fitness we're looking at. For example, there's a specific warm-up relating to the Olympic lifting, and there's adaptations made for the repeated sprint training and plyometric training. So with this now, my client is just doing joint mobility. We're using the ramp method. Raise, activate and mobilise and potentiate of Jeffries 2007 to get things started off. So at the moment it's joint mobility to reduce the viscosity of the synovial fluid in the joints. So this is just neck and shoulder rotations, and 10 to 15 on each side should suffice. So starting at the top of the body with the joint rotations, we're going to get full activation, circumduction in the shoulders, backwards and forwards, 10 to 15 repetitions on each side. Full motion working down the body now to the hips. Another important thing about the warm-ups is also it's for physical and mental preparation for exercise, so it gets the athlete ready pre-competition and in the right frame of mind. Benefits for a good warm-up include faster muscle contractions and also relaxation, and it's been shown to increase the rate of force development. Now we're going on to the aerobic stage of the warm-up, just to increase the heart rate, get blood flowing to all the muscles, warm the muscles up, reduce the likelihood of injury according to Pinto. According to Pinto et al. 2014, this should reduce injury. So in the mobility phase, according to De Vries and Husch 1995, that should reduce the viscosity of the synovial fluid. There's some debate about stretching as well, so we're just going on to a little bit of a stretching phase now that the muscles are warmed up. Regards dynamic stretching or static stretching. So at the moment, the client's doing some dynamic stretching. A meta-analysis of Simic et al. 2000 and 12 says that there is a decrement exists in power production, running speed, reaction time if the stretches are above 45 seconds pre-performance. So another idea behind the warm-ups is to simulate the actions of the sport that you're doing. So the client now is just doing some lunges to stretch out the hips, try and prevent injury. Going through all the planes of motion that you might come to in the sport and also the activity. Moving on from a general warm-up, it's important to be specific with your warm-up to the exercise that you're going to be performing. So for the Olympic lifting, you need to do some wrist circles, so a lot of gripping at the bar, flexion of the wrist when we do the power clean, holding it onto the shoulders. About 10 to 15 reps both sides. elbow circles now. Fully extend the elbows, pronate, supinate, at the ulnar and the radius, full range of motion. Seal swings now, trying to pinch the shoulder blades together, about chin height, just nice and relaxed. Now these are over shoulders, over backs, sorry, trying not to use the hips, you're trying to isolate the hips, just using the shoulders and some momentum. Freestyle bounce, this time the idea of the two arms working against each other this time is to lock the hips out. So you're isolating the shoulders, only using the shoulders for this one. Moving on to full arm circles now. So full range of motion in those shoulders. It's important because obviously the upper body's doing a lot of work in the Olympic lifting with the power clean. Trunk rotations. On the non-supporting foot, that heel's coming up off the floor. So there's no twisting at the knee. Obviously with the client having a past ACL, full hip circles. And this is going back to that mobility now, with the viscosity, the synovial fluid viscosity, lowering that down. 10 to 15 on each side. Knee circles, both ways, 10 to 15. Just move on from that. And again, this is similar to the general warm-up, some dynamic stretching now. The legs. If you notice, the client does have a little bit of a problem with flexibility at the hamstrings. We'll address that issue with the plyometrics. Sorry, not the plyometrics. We'll address that issue with the cool down flexibility sessions in the cool down. These are quite specific now to the power clean. There's a mid squat used in the power clean. So getting good flexibility now in the legs, going over the ankle joints and pushing the body weight over those ankle joints now, because that goes right under that bar in the power clean. With it being a triple extension exercise. This one here, you're pushing the elbows out at the knees there. Going back to the needs analysis for the sport, a lot of power is needed in football. One way to develop power is to use some Olympic lifting. The Olympic lift that we chose to use was the power clean. The benefits of that, according to Garhammer 1980, is of the Olympic lifts, it's easy to master and it requires less leg strain than other Olympic lifts. So from there, I go nice fast push, pull up. So just have a look at my client this time. So to develop strength, the power clean, it's a triple extension movement which is used in a lot of sports. Hip, knees, ankle to improve maximal strength according to Clark 2015 and improve explosive power. So client there, toes under the bar, knees pushed out, arms up. That's a bit too slow, that far too wide in the squat. So you do a half squat and feet shouldn't come as wide as they did there. So Olympic lifting is actually a sport in itself, but it does have benefits for other sports as well. So one of the downsides to powerlifting, according to Jesse 2016, it's actually quite detailed and hard to master, perhaps compared to other things such as tire flipping and so on that can have a similar action, and the risk of injury is quite high due to poor technique. Again, according to Jesse 2016. Another aspect to injury prevention is stabilisation. So we've done some plyometrics training here solely for injury prevention, getting your body used to the sport that it's about to do, and some stabilisation to prevent injuries at the ankles, at the knees and so on. These all replicate actions that you will find in some sports, triple extension, power. But the idea of the stabilisation phase is just to prevent injury, get you ready for the next phase of the plyometrics. So Myer et al. 2006 found that through stabilisation with training in plyometrics, you can decrease coronal plane in the hip, knee and ankle to prevent ACL tears, and also it gets you ready to move on to more complex plyometric training. Chmura et al. 2004 did a 6-week plyo control test and found that it controlled the varus and valgus movements at the knee during landing, again preventing problems with ACL tears and that kind of thing. And Wilkerson 2004 found that it improved the hamstring and the quadriceps ratios and preventing injury to the knee at the eccentric deceleration phase of landing. So it's an important aspect to get the stabilisation aspects done. However, one problem with the athlete is getting the athlete to understand the importance of it, because it can be seen as quite boring and dull. Nice and stable, good jumps, using the arms as a counterbalance. An important factor in the needs analysis for sport was power, speed, velocity. One way to develop that is through plyometrics training. So here are some exercises for plyometrics this time. Unlike the stabilisation phase, we're going to repeat these over and over as much as we can, straight off. So I'm doing it a little bit slow there, but you've got to do it nice and fast, as quick as you can. The goal of plyometrics training is to increase your reaction time, to get some real speed into the power that you've developed through Olympic lifting. Get some real speed now. According to Myer 2006, the main goal is to increase the reaction time. Now, plyometrics gives quick, powerful movement. It involves 3 phases: an eccentric phase, also known as the loading phase, immediately followed by an explosive concentric contraction. Now, just in between that is the amortization phase. And the faster you can go from the eccentric to the contraction, that midpoint, that amortization phase, we've got to reduce that, get it down as fast as we can, according to Myer 2006, to improve our speed. Now, one thing that plyometric training does is it simulates sporting actions as well. But it really builds, it's a good builder for neuromuscular pathways. So it promotes the neuromuscular efficiency and improves the velocity through strength of neuromuscular pathways, as well as actually just through muscular strength. Downside to plyometric training: very difficult to do any hypertrophy with it. Not sure what's happened there. And another downside to it as well, according to Bedore et al. 2015, is that it can actually cause injuries as well, so it can take you out of your sport through injury. So as stated earlier, it's important to tailor your warm-ups to the exercises that you're about to do. So we're about to do sprint training in a minute, so this warm-up is specified to that. So according to Vetter 2007, you need to mimic the sport towards the end of your warm-up. Get the warm-up looking like the sport or the training that you're about to do. So Vetter 2007 recommends 20-meter flying start, 4 sets, walk and recovery at around half to 3/4 speed for the sprints. We included repeated sprint training in the programme in an attempt to reduce repeated sprint fatigue, and also looking at this. The sprinters change direction every 4.5 seconds, and they go flat out for just under 5 seconds each time. So according to Epson et al., the best way to improve your speed is to actually take part in repeated sprint training. Epsom et al. 2011. One way to improve your speed is to actually look at your body mechanics as well. So using those arms to pump and to drive. Low down, then into that upright position as fast as you can. So it's acceleration that we're looking at too. Bailey et al. 2009 found that repeated sprint training is better for increasing VO2 max than low intensity endurance training of a similar workload. Also, Boucher and Lauritsen 2013 report that it's a better indicator for fitness than for most sports than VO2 max recording. So we designed this to simulate the kind of sprints that the athlete would meet in the football sport. So we gave 5 seconds duration with a 30-second rest, work to rest ratio of 1 to 6, and he repeated it 10 times. According to Boucher and Lauritsen 2013, typically repeat it between 6 and 15 times. So because of his fitness level, he's not an absolute beginner, but he's not super fit. We chose to go middle of those parameters. As a baseline for the repeated sprint fatigue, we took a look at the fatigue index. On his first attempt, the client managed 28.8 meters, slowly reducing a little bit at a time until his last attempt number 10, was 26.1 meters. So over a period of a few weeks, we can monitor that and see if there's any improvement.